Hello everyone. This is a brief video to introduce you to the subject of theory of knowledge. Hopefully this will give you a better understanding of why we teach theory of knowledge and why it's important. In theory of knowledge, which I now refer to as TOK, students spend 2 semesters answering one question. What does it mean to know something? You have all this knowledge, but how do you know it's true? The IB learner profile lists 10 attributes which students are expected to acquire and develop throughout their study of the IB diploma. Theory of Knowledge, a course in critical thinking, promotes the development of reflective inquirers and thinkers. The course encourages students to reflect on the subject-specific knowledge claims and arguments that they will encounter in their 6 IB subjects. Furthermore, the course assumes that there is a value to a deeper critical inquiry into knowledge questions and exploration of abstract concepts which underpin subject areas, including justification, certainty, evidence, value, or truth. Students are encouraged to reflect on the interplay between shared knowledge claims, what we know, and personal knowledge claims, what I know. It requires an approach that avoids a lazy relativism that claims anything goes, or a skepticism that claims that there's no point because there are no better or worse answers, or an absolutism that claims there's only one answer. In TOK, students examine this question by looking at how knowledge can be defined. We also investigate shared and personal knowledge, which I will speak more on later. We look at 8 different ways of knowing, some of which include emotion, reason, sense perception, and language. And within different areas of knowledge, we look at natural and social sciences, history, art, ethics, and religion. Students also apply their analysis to the subjects they study in the IB program and in their lives outside of school. This is the type of question we would investigate. When a physicist says, "I know," does he mean the same as a poet does? A mathematician? How about you? What you know? TOK is really at the heart of the hexagon. It is the center of what we do in IB, and more importantly, it is not an additional add-on subject. It is central to our approach to learning. Things like inquiry, encouraging lifelong learning, encouraging international mindedness. Included in the hexagon is the extended essay and creativity, action, and service, which we call CAS. This forms the hub of what our students do in the IB diploma. So TOK really forms a bridge between the 6 subjects and aids in the critical thinking skills required for success. This is an article out of an IB magazine. A student from the International School of Egypt said, "TOK turned out to be the most life-changing experience, something I never thought a class could be. International mindedness is the best defined as a frame of mind. Perhaps, though, a philosophy for living would be more appropriate, for it enables and empowers individuals with the ability to perceive the world in a manner that disregards the self and its prejudices while embracing a greater sense of the other." And I think personally that this is a common experience for many students around the world. And I really like this sentence here. "I've learned it's important to think for yourself in a world where conformity has come to be synonymous with comfort." I think the more we learn and understand this, our students will be more successful. TOK also really connects to the learner profile. In TOK, we inquire. We ask questions about the areas of knowledge and the ways of knowing. We talk a lot about knowledge itself, looking at different aspects of it, and being able to think critically. Discussion is a very important part of communicating, as is being principled, open-minded, and caring. There is a level of taking risks about questioning their knowledge, and then having a balanced view that looks at different areas of one's life, which also means being reflective and ruminating on what they know and how they know it. You can pause the video to read from the guide if you need more time, But really, discussion is what forms the backbone of this course. Here are some example questions we could discuss in TOK classes. I'll give you a chance to read through them. Pause the video if you need more time. I will talk more about the last one a little bit later, which is, can a male doctor know more about giving birth than a woman who has had 10 children? I think this cutting sums up a lot for me too. We're not trying to get kids to conform to our way of thinking, but get them to embrace their way of thinking and understanding of their knowledge, and to be equipped to use it and communicate it, and to understand it better. Here we have the new TOK diagram. We see the areas of knowledge, the AOKs, on the outside of the circle, and the ways of knowing, the WOKs, as an inner circle, and then the knower at the center of the diagram. That is the student. The reason for this is twofold. The first is that the knower influences how he uses his ways of knowing to get information on the areas of knowledge. Our faith, for example, can be used to determine what we think is true in history and how we decide what is ethical and what isn't. For example, as a Muslim, I use my faith as a way of determining that abortion is unethical. Others of different faiths, however, can support the idea that women have the right to choose whether to go through the operation or not. Alternatively, the knower could choose to use his reason in order to understand the different areas of knowledge. The knower can decide what he believes and what he needs to further investigate. Also, the ways of knowing influence him on how he perceives the world. In other words, the areas of knowledge and the ways of knowing impact who the knower is and how he perceives the world. For these reasons, the knower is at the center of the TOK diagram. It is also important to consider shared and personal knowledge. There is a big difference between I know because and we know because. Shared knowledge is basically the knowledge that is accessible to everyone, that is part of the public domain, that all people, and maybe they don't know it, but they all have access to it. Personal knowledge are things I've come to understand through my own experience. I give an example to my students about how I enjoy whitewater rafting. I know a lot about rafting from what I've read and seen on videos, which is part of our shared knowledge. But I also know from my own experience, especially the experiences where I have fallen out of the raft, how best to ride the stream. Some of my knowledge overlaps, and I've read something and then proved it on my own personal experience, or I've known it and then found shared knowledge that confirms it. Another great example again is that male doctor delivering babies. His personal knowledge would be very different to the mother's personal knowledge. He has a lot of access to shared knowledge, but to link to the personal is quite limited. Another important diagram explains knowledge questions, which are the fundamental element of TOK. They are questions about knowledge. TOK is built on one big question, which is, how do we know what we know? And you can see knowledge questions as really scaled down versions of that big question applied to real life. At their simplest, they could be something like, how do we know that there's a war going on in Iraq at the moment? Or how do we know that there is a general election in the UK today? Or how do we know that Juventus beat Barcelona on Tuesday night? We learn how to understand knowledge questions, how to analyze them, and examine to what extent you look at them through the lenses of the areas of knowledge and the ways of knowing, and if other perspectives have been considered. There are 8 ways of knowing. They can work together. Each have their advantages and limitations, and we spend a lot of time talking about how they interrelate to each other. We also look at different areas of knowledge, and in each of those areas there are different approaches and different ideas as to what qualifies as knowledge, different ideas as what qualifies as good evidence and good support for knowledge. The knowledge framework is an important tool that will kind of shape the way our classes, our lessons, and our ideas are structured. We look at real life situations through the lens of different areas of knowledge. So within the AOKs, what is the scope or application? What can we know and actually do with that knowledge? With the specific concepts and language in this area of knowledge, what are the methodologies used in this AOK? For example, evidence in mathematics is different to evidence in science, even though people may think there are a lot of connections. We look at the historical development of the specific AOK. Do people approach mathematics very differently in the past than they do now? Have we always used the same scientific method? Is history of the past more accurate than history that we write now? And we all link it back to personalize our real-life experiences. Here is a core idea from Alfred Korzybski to really think about how to encourage kids to come to develop critical thinking skills. And so we are not indoctrinating them, nor are we making them total skeptics, but rather getting them to think. And I quote, "There are two ways to slide easily through life, to believe everything or to doubt everything. Both ways save us from thinking." The last part of my presentation is about the two major pieces of assessment in TOK. One is a presentation which is basically 10 minutes per student, where they take a real-life situation and identify, investigate, and analyze knowledge issues or knowledge questions related to it. The other piece of assessment is the essay on a prescribed title. Students are given a choice of 6 titles from IB to choose from. The presentation is a third of their grade, and the essay is 2/3. I hope this brief video has been helpful to you, and you enjoy the evolution of your knowledge.